Good morning, and welcome to an edition of Off the Grid with Sarah Overall. I'm Sarah Overall, founder and CEO of Decompression Dynamics and Associate Professor of History. I wanted to come to the microphone to initiate a conversation this morning, and of course I'm the only one in the room, but I feel that talking and uploading this, what I consider a conversation, is a conversation, because I hope that anybody listening to my thoughts are going to receive these thoughts and then apply those ideas to other people, and then hence the conversation continues, the ripple effects, if you will. And that's exactly what, in my opinion, our nation was founded on. It is also, in my opinion, what our nation is severely lacking. When I go back in my courses to teach my students the beauty of our local assemblies and how they were at one point such a threat to the British government before the crisis worsened, before the revolutionary storm gathered so tremendously, that's the first target, one of the first targets that the British government started to go after, was the meetings of the colonials, because they were trying to have conversation about their concerns and the illnesses that were coming upon them from this torrent of oppression that was changing what their joy was promised to them, or at least what their hopes were. The reason why I decided to divert my car today, I had some business to attend to, and I decided to do this instead, was because of this tremendous crisis that, I don't even think even crisis is even a word anymore here. I don't even know what the word is. It's a sickening, awful torrent, cauldron of despair that we are finding ourselves in, to do with this taking of one's lives at all levels. I thought that the tipping point for me was the loss of our young student in McKinney at the high school on the last week of school last year, and that was a difficult thing, on top of the funerals that I attended outside of the many that I never even made it to among our first responder community last year, particularly the major hit that was taken by the Dallas Police Department. And then, of course, there seems to be an unbelievable excess in the our fire department community, and I'm very confused at this point. And then we've just had another loss last night. And so there's been some thoughts on my mind, as someone who does not promote herself as any kind of expert whatsoever, but someone who is trained in theory, military history and military theory, who spent a lot of time learning one particular concept that's been really driven home by some very astute professors that I do really respect. One, Dr. Robin Hyam, former Spitfire pilot and British Navy aviation historian, that I just can't thank enough for my training. And, he really drove home the concept of the wearing down approach. And he really, really hammered that with us in our training. And he immersed us in theorists such as Karl von Clausewitz and Jomini and so many theorists. And there was always a pattern to me that was prevalent, that if it wasn't called the wearing down approach, it certainly had the same theory. And that theory spoke of this idea that if you didn't have the same capabilities as your larger enemy, or your more industrialized enemy, or your enemy that had the bigger economy, or the more astute economy, or whatever term you want to use, you could be a formidable force by utilizing this very simple capability of wearing them down slowly and methodically over time. One of the individuals that professes very clearly in his writings is Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu is brilliant in his teachings. The Art of War is one of the great works there. He speaks about such simple means to achieve your aims towards victory, and his model has been proven multiple times over to success. We ourselves employed the wearing down approach through the use of unity and so forth as guerrillas against the British themselves in our revolutionary fervor when we gained the security of our voice, which was the demand of our freedom for our country to be ours. We hit a very strong stumbling point in the Vietnam War when we came out of World War II, highly industrialized, very extremely strong economy, and went into Southeast Asia and met up against a formidable enemy that didn't seem such, that used very well against us the wearing down approach. The wearing down approach is an invisible ghost that operates in a stealth manner, really, and it's very fluid. You don't really see it happening. And to use a terminology from the Vietnam War, I know we've used this sort of in a casual way in graduate seminars at Kansas State with Robin Hyam, is 2 body bags today, 5 tomorrow, 30 in a month, another 2 the next day, another 30 in 3 more months, and so on and so on. Hence, later when it's all said and done, we stand back and stare at a wall that bears over 58,000 names, and we say, oh my, how did that happen? When did that happen? And then as I stood against I had the honor to do it, and I'll never forget it, stand up against the traveling Vietnam Memorial Wall, helping to guard it at an event with Snowball Express, a wonderful organization that supports our families that have lost a U.S. military member. It was a day out on the tarmac with American Airlines, and they were bringing out school children. And as I stood at the wall, the traveling wall, I watched young American teachers walk their children, their school children, right past the wall. And the children and the teachers, many, didn't even see it. So imagine, if you will, a table. And there's a game board on it. Multiple games if you want. A lot of people go to game nights. There's a game of bingo, there's a game of cards, Monopoly, whatever you want. There's games on the table. There's people sitting around the table. It's game night. Lots of laughter, some drinks, some snacks. And as the evening goes on and the games go on, you've got to keep track of who's winning. So one of the easiest ways to do it is to have a note piece of paper, a notepad handy, and a pen. So both sides, or whomever, however you want to break up the teams or whatever, keeps a pad of paper and a pen, and they keep track of the game scores. And as I grew up, there was always 4 clicks, 1/, 2/, 3/4. And when you get to the 5th, there was a diagonal. And the diagonal went across the 4 slashes, and that was a 5. And you started again. And then the next slash was 6. 6/, 7/, 8/9. Then the second diagonal, and you'd mark 10. And when you were all done with the games, and the evening was over, and it was time to retire for bed, you tallied up the winners. You counted up the slashes. And it was easy because if you did the diagonals, you could then count by 5s. If you could count by 5s, it was very easy to count up the final tally and to quickly decide who wins. You could either relish in your victory and be proud of yourself, or you could exchange your prizes or what have you. If the scores were even, then you knew there was no winner. And we used to call that cat's game or what have you when we were younger. Or you just decide that it was a neutral deal and nobody had won. Often we'd say, want to go another round? Want to go another round? Okay, let's do another round. Scratch it, throw away the paper, and let's start again. Okay. New deal. Shuffle it up, shuffle the cards, let's go new deal. Also, imagine, if you will, one of my greats, Winston Churchill. Love him. Oh, I really love him. I admire him so. Winston Churchill, he had a war room down in the depths of his residence area and so forth down in London. And in this war room was these giant maps, the map room, the map tables, and they used to keep track of where the different fighting forces were during World War II. And if there'd been a particular onslaught, perhaps, maybe it didn't fare so well for them, They would remove a group of fighting men or so and their equipment in their figurative stance on the war tables with an apparatus that looks sort of like a bridge that you use when you're playing pool, when you're having that difficult pull shot and you can't necessarily get the shot made on that table, and you bring out the bridge stick. And they would push them off the map table and remove them, and then sort of reset, if you will, the next play on the map table, and so they could have a vision of what was going on. Perhaps Gallipoli, and of course that was a different time, but just different. I think of Gallipoli because I go back to thinking of how desperate that all was. But anyways, that's a different connection. But anyway, my point being, just different parts of Africa and various areas as to how they would envision what was going on. Well, there's a really great presentation on Netflix of Winston Churchill's war room, and he used to sit in his chair, and it's very fascinating to me because there's grooves in this chair he sat in, big grooves in the chair, because he would click his ring on the chair arm, click, 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 as he would, stress over thinking of what was going on. Of course, he didn't show that side of himself outwardly much, but he would just drive this ring into his chair as he was always thinking about what the next move was. And it's all a game. You got to be the smarter thinker and the smarter planner, and it takes a system of alliances working together in concert with one another to get it done. And it was quite an effort, as we know. So a couple things are on my mind at this point, and I'm trying to make them merge as I think it out. A, the wearing down approach is real. It's a weapon. It's an extremely powerful weapon. It's a psychological weapon that is a powerful entity that is completely unnoticeable to the common eye in the common life of an average man or woman living their ordinary life. If you don't think about it, talk about it, and start searching for it, you'll miss it completely, and it'll overtake you like an ocean wave, and before you look back, everything will be gone. Our formidable enemies that don't seem as such by the eye rely on time. Time is on their side. They're trained at that. Their games are long-term in sight for themselves. They're generational in approach. So they're planters now, and they're reapers for long distances in the future. Their game is that those that protect the fields as we are today will be gone by then. And a hybrid new culture will exist, and will not know how to tend to the fields by then. And they'll be able to sweep over, and their end game will be won. It's been written about for centuries. It's been written about by multitudes of theorists, thinkers, and ordinary men and women. Even people that just have gut instincts. Machiavelli wrote also in a warning approach to societies that the more broken you become and the more splintered you become and the more, quote, hybrid, that's my word, you become, you will eventually tear your protectors down with you, because your protectors will ultimately become mirrored by its society. So therefore, my contention is that the wearing down approach has now reached home, and it has implanted itself, and it is becoming a successful threat. One today, two tomorrow, four the next day. We already talk about 22 a day, which is a solid, fair number. Yeah, it goes up and down. And it's got its dynamics to what it is, but we talk about that magic number, 22 a day, of our military deciding to take their own lives per day. We have an epidemic rising in our first responder community among our firefighters and law enforcement. There is a chipping away that is beginning to grow, a wearing down approach of the safest layer we have between the outside world, even in our domestic securities, at home in our communities. And it is an absolute and utter concern. If we do not take note and do something soon, we will look back and we will be regretful. So beyond the conversation that I'm hoping to create, I have an appeal. I've seen some posts on Facebook, and I see a cry. I see a cry by first responders themselves, chaplains, firefighters, police officers, police chiefs, fire chiefs, battalion commanders, the young recruit, 911 dispatch operators. I haven't seen that actually. I just don't want to forget them because they're absolutely amazing. Are they not? You pick up the phone and they're always there. That voice, that calm voice, saying, I'm right here. We can never, ever forget them. How about anybody? How about when we're in the car, driving to wherever we're driving, and if, God forbid, something happens to us, whatever situation we find ourselves in, however uncompromising we could become, the people that are going to take us up off of there and get us somewhere, or even if we can't get somewhere, we're going to go away with dignity because they have kept the protocol and the tradition in place, because they still say ma'am and sir and stand at attention even though they're breaking. And they still go home to their families and smile at the birthday party of their kids, even though they've had to see and do and smell something that we can't even imagine. And it's probably the 5th time that day. And they can't get the sounds out of their ears. or the military man or woman that came back from overseas after their fourth or fifth time or more, and then they became one of those people, and something on the highway reminded them of overseas, and they're doubled up with it all, and they still end up trying to do their best, and their spouse says, "What's the matter with you? You're not the person I dated." I don't want this anymore. And they can't get a job at Walmart. Or the kids at Taco Bell that they're working with don't want to hang out with them because they're weird somehow. What's wrong with that picture? Why are they having to get a job in the mainstream with everybody else? Why do we not have a system that gives them a whole nother track of jobs and professions guaranteed to them till retirement? Why, if they're injured or hurt or cancer from what they've encountered or the protective stuff that they encounter to put out the fires or what have you, when their short-term benefits run out, they live off a family of 4 or 5, live off $400 a month, and then they're out and they have nowhere to go of the very communities that they were serving in? Why is that happening? So here's my appeal. If I could ask all those individuals personally, while we work this out, we have a lot to work out. We've got a lot to fix. If I could explain to you what it was like to go to my first couple days of class of my dual credit students, which are college students, but they're at the high schools, if you'd listen to me right now, military veterans, active duty, firefighters, police officers, all first responders, 911 dispatch, EMS, prison, all of you, if you would listen to me, if you knew how hopeful these kids are, they're not kids, they're young adults. They are hopeful. They need heroes. They need their heroes or they're not going to be able to do this. Their kids in this country are pulling weapons out of their backpacks and doing obscene things in schools, and it's random. In our nation, first responders are showing up in the news of deciding to leave us, and it's random. Our allies overseas that we worked with so brilliantly throughout all of our history, mostly World Wars I and II, and our friendships through so much along the way, and other conflicts too, of course, are sinking. My own family's motherland is sinking. We got this, and we can do it. Your brothers and sisters in your professions are crying out because they cannot hold you in their arms when you've left them. The weight of your decisions are crushing them. They need you to stay in the game. The nation needs you to stay in the game. You are the best. You are the ones that stepped into the ring by choice. You are the strong. Your brothers and your sisters cannot hold your weight. You're too heavy. The enemies have war rooms too. The enemies out there have a tally sheet, their pad of paper and pen. Please do not leave us, because they will add another tick sheet tally to their sheet count. It upsets the balance of power and they gain advantage. Please do not let them write on their tally sheet. Do not allow them to pick up their pen and add to their tally sheet. Stay with us and don't put your weight in the arms of your brothers and sisters. They cannot carry you right now because they are exhausted. The kids need their heroes, and we need you in the game, and you are loved and appreciated. There is a beautiful piece of music by Hans Zimmer. I'm a fan of Hans Zimmer, a German composer. And for just a piece of music that can really wash over you and make you feel nice, it's called Time. And if you have a chance to listen to it on YouTube, it's Hans Zimmer, Time. And there's another piece by Hans Zimmer, and it's the piece that's, I believe it's still called Time, and it's you can find it on the making of the Interstellar soundtrack. It's on YouTube, and they incorporate a giant pipe organ from a London cathedral. It's a London cathedral. It's a very young man there playing it. And they incorporate this pipe organ, and it's just beautiful. And I just think that the song title, Time, I think it's Tick-Tock Time or something, and this pipe organ, and it's in London of all places, and it is just breathtaking, and it's just something that is worth a listen. I'm going to close with something that I actually heard Sir Michael Caine recite, and there's no way that I can compare with him. His voice is amazing. But I want to close with this, and thank you for your time. And it's the poem by Rudyard Kipling called If. The English poet that wrote this in circa 1895. I think it was published in like 1905 or something like that. This is how it goes. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies. Or being hated, don't give way to hating. And yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If If you can dream and not make dreams your master, you can think and not make thoughts your aim. If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same. If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they're gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Machiavelli said it. You are the kings, and the kings can't disappear. That was his interpretation anyway. Don't let the sickness of society, and we are ill, my friends, no doubt. Don't let the fabrics tear you down. Hold still, hold firm, hold on. We're going to get this corrected. Don't become a tally on their pad sheet. Don't let their war room gain ground. The balance of power is at stake, and we are to win. God bless you.